Thank you. Get the clicker to work. God, lots of slides. Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Nat, I'm from Spotify. I'm a client partner across retail. And for today's playlist, I'm going to take you through the coolest campaign on Spotify, BWS, the Cool Room. So I'll kick off by talking through the challenge and objectives that BWS and Cara set for us when this brief landed. We'll then touch on the strategy and solution that we worked with alongside Bring, and of course looking at how this campaign came to life and how it performed. We'll then dive into a fireside chat with key stakeholders across this brief from Spotify, BWS and Bring. So let's go. So the challenge and objectives. What was keeping BWS up at night? Well, there were two key factors. The first, the liquor industry is increasingly competitive with the rise of small boutique offerings and pure play e-com retailers stealing share from the mainstream bottle shops. Secondly, there's a rising trend among millennials, and I'm referring to millennials and Gen Z, that they are more conscious of their drinking habits and in turn are drinking differently. So what was the objective? The objective of this brief was to get mills who are intimidated to walk into bottle shops to enjoy the bottle shop experience by rewriting the rules to create a place where young Aussies belong. So what was our strategy and solution that we came up with to solve for this challenge for BWS? Every year, we run an annual culture and trends report that looks at how Gen Z and millennials are shaping digital audio streaming and culture at large. This was back in 2021, remember, when COVID, lockdowns, and live streams were the norm. So we knew that 84% of mills were over live streams. But what did they want? Well, they wanted live events, they wanted interaction, and they wanted their favourite artists in real life. This gave BWS a unique opportunity to create an ownable asset and to connect with the Mills audience by creating something truly memorable for their fans. Enter the Cool Room. So what was the idea? Well, we knew that heading into a bottle shop may not seem like fun on face value, but there is one defining feature, and that is the Cool Room. So we used this unique feature to create the world's first promotion, party, and performance inside a BWS Cool Room. So how did we spread the message far and wide and get audiences to engage? Well, BWS hosted a competition to drive users to enter to win a chance to an intimate exclusive gig, either in Melbourne with Broods or in Sydney with Client Liaison. We used the Spotify streaming data to reach the audience at the right time, so based on their mood, their mindset, or specific party and social moment. And we also were able to use our artist affinity targeting to reach Broods and Client Liaison fans. We used targeted media across Spotify, ranging from audio, video, display, and tapping into our Mills podcast where we know that they over-index. Just drawing your attention to the right hand of the screen for our call to action cards. These are our exclusive podcast call to action cards, which is the first ad format making podcasts actionable for the first time ever. To drive brand engagement and excitement, we created a bespoke microsite which temperature checked, literally, our Spotify users' streaming habits. So whether they be chill, medium, or hot, they were matched with a personalised playlist and the perfect BWS products to match that vibe, plus a discount code to encourage users to purchase. To round out the campaign, we captured all of the amazing content at the gigs to drive talkability and FOMO, and we worked with the artists, Client Liaison and Broods to create their own Cool Room tunes that are housed on the BWS branded profile across Spotify. This is really to drive that music strategy for BWS and to continue to connect with Mills to truly bring the vibes. So how did the campaign perform? Well, first and foremost, how did it all come together and how did the two events go? We ran two amazing events in Melbourne and Sydney that truly brought the vibes and a memorable experience to Mills. And these orange puffers were in high demand. Everybody loved them. We kicked it off with Broods in Melbourne, followed by Client Liaison in Sydney, bringing Mills a truly memorable experience inside a BWS Cool Room. We delivered 14 million impressions to 1.7 million uniques, and we saw key increases across the KPIs of awareness, ad recall, and favourability towards BWS. So now you've had a bit of an overview of how the campaign looked, We'll dive into a fireside chat with some key stakeholders across the brief. So inviting to stage Adrian Bingham, Head of Sales at Spotify across Australia and New Zealand, Jack Young, Marketing Manager at BWS, and Brooke Pilton, Executive Partnerships Director at Bring. So I'll kick off with you. How did the campaign address your BWS marketing challenges?
Yeah, so as a brand, BWS had done an amazing job of becoming Australia's largest and most convenient drinks retailer. We have over 1,400 stores. We're in every community across Australia, and we had so many convenient offerings. COVID happened. Every other retailer, every other brand in the world hit on convenience. So how did we want to start to differentiate ourselves? We also had an amazing opportunity with our Millsy audience. We know that they were going to be the largest buying cohort for our brand by 2025, but they had no affinity, or they just didn't see the differences between any bottle shop. They were drinking differently. They were interacting with brands differently. So how did we need to authentically connect with them in an emotional way? We also looked at data, and we knew that music and drinks go hand in hand. We've all been to a festival before, we've all been to a concert, we've all enjoyed a drink, and we've all had memorable experiences through music. So how did we want to create those two worlds to come together in a platform that's ownable to BWS, whilst also driving a proof point, which is our cool room? And no other retailer in Australia talks about their cool room. Why would you talk about a giant fridge in the back of your store? But that gave us an opportunity to drive equity in an ownable asset for ours in the lead up to summer, where we know that foot traffic will also be coming through largely. So that's where the cool room came to life. It was all about really turning up the heat in the coldest room, getting artists that we knew that our audience would really connect with. But it solidified us in an authentic way to jump into the music industry and own that. We were really passionate about doing things right, doing things in the correct way, but also doing it in a truly inherently BWS way, which we're the cheeky challenger brand, so why not utilise a space in store that no one else would consider?
Nice. Brooke, how did the idea of using a cool room gig venue come about, and how did the artist, Broods and client liaison contribute to making the concert experience unique?
Well, as Jax has already mentioned, the cool room is the best part of the alcohol shopping experience. So we really wanted to lean into BWS's brand, strategic brand platform, which was the unboring bottle shop, as well as the research that you've all heard about, whereas Millsies were intimidated to walk into a bottle shop. We then overlaid that with some universal music data, which we had that Millsies crave exclusive experiences. So think gigs that they can't have access to usually. So when you pair those two moments together, we could create something really unique and ownable to BWS that made sure that BWS was unboring, that gave fans a reason to head into the bottle shop and create that really memorable experience. But as you've heard, it's also really important to make sure that artists that we choose is also really important. We used streaming data and label chats to make sure that Broods and client liaison were the perfect match for these two environments. Broods, we knew, hadn't performed in Australia for 5 years. They had new music, so we knew that they were really ripe to be the headline act for Melbourne. And client liaison, we asked them to turn up the heat in their performances. They upped the ante with their costumes. They got really up close and personal with all of the fans, and that really shone through in the content and turned up the party vibes to make it a really memorable experience.
Nice. Adrian, I'm interested to hear from you. How did podcast advertising contribute to the success of this, or any audio campaign for that matter?
Yeah, what I really liked about this campaign was it used multiple formats, multiple environments, and different need states to really engage at the BWS audience. With podcasts specifically, the reason why we really looked into that more deeply and wanted to include it in the plan was really about its role. So we were quite purposeful about including podcasts because as you can see, it's very heavily centered around music as an overall campaign, but we knew that podcast would bring that millennial and Gen Z audience in as well, and we knew it would actually drive really strong outcomes focused on recall, brand preference, cut through, all of those areas as well. We looked at our internal data and we could see that, the inspired unemployed, as an example, really over-indexed for the audience. Also helps that they've got one of the fastest growing beer brands in Australia. So we used those guys. We knew it would create a lot of trust, talkability as well. So that was built into the campaign. And then, as Nat touched on earlier, we had that visual component that we could add in as well with call to action cards. So that ran across the campaign. And then to extend and really amplify the podcast buy, we used Spotify Audience Network, and that was a way to ensure that we didn't have to go by title. We could really focus in on what was the audience that we're trying to chase here and use that unique selling points of the podcast environment. So it was quite critical to the campaign.
And Jax, why did you choose to work with Bring and Spotify as a key partner?
Well, as I touched on before, we knew we had to go big with this. We didn't want to have it as a flash in the pan. We didn't want to dip our toe in. We're like, if we're going to do it, we're going to go hell to leather and just hit it head on. And we knew if we need to do that, we need to work with the best in the business. So luckily we have the powerhouse media agency of Cara, which gets us in front of the likes of Spotify and Bring. Bring just understood our brand from the get-go. They knew what we wanted to do. We knew how we wanted to deliver it. They fully immersed themselves in the BWS world. They had the connections to the music industry. They understood what people wanted. They bring experiential, pun intended, they bring experiential activations to life in the most finessed way, and everything was just done absolutely perfectly. And then Spotify as a tried and tested partner with us. Music as a platform for BWS is a great return on investment for us. We've tried and tested it with so many campaigns, platforms through Value, Brand, Summer. So we just knew that this platform was a great way for us to integrate with the right audiences, have a multitude of channels to connect with them, but fully create this ecosystem that allowed us to touch on brand building awareness, customer acquisition, commercial opportunities, but also to showcase that, we wanted to put our money where our mouth was and just really have a partner that allowed us to deliver a truly impactful and, what's most exciting, a long-term enduring platform for us in the music world.
Nice. Brooke, what do you see as the number one opportunity for brands wanting to lean into audio and more specifically music?
Well, I don't think I need to tell this group, but music is the number one passion point among young Australians. It's a great connector. It allows brands to have a really unique and authentic conversation and talk to consumers in an area that they're passionate about. It's never been more important post-pandemic to support the music industry, and artists are really leaning into those brand collaborations because they see how they can elevate their creativity, and giving brands that opportunity to speak to their fans, it's really outputting some truly unique and creative elements, which, the Cool Room was one of those testaments as well. I think a lot of brands think that they need a fully fledged music strategy to enter the music world, but, and we do that. We do it for Amex and Destination New South Wales, but looking at BWS as a prime example, we were briefed on the Cool Room as this asset. We tested it last year as a working option, and now we're working on a multi-year scalable music strategy, and it all started from really dipping their toe into the market.
Adrian, I'll throw it to you if you have any final thoughts before we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you. What I would say is, obviously this is an incredible campaign, multifaceted. Just to kind of add to Brooke's point, I would say to people in the audience that are thinking about audio maybe for the first time, I know that there's a lot of talk at the moment around some brands, because of the economic situation, going back to tried and tested, but right now it is an absolute awesome opportunity to test audio. Obviously it's a growing medium, it's addressable, measurable, and I think it's an exciting time, and not to be overwhelmed, keep it simple. And I think right now, there's a great chance for everyone to actually look at it, test and learn from it, and build on it.
Nice. Thanks to the panellists, and we'll hand back over to Gay.